This video, called Jellyfish, came out a few days ago. It shows an object seeming to fly over a US military base in Iraq. I initially noted that it looked a bit like some bird poop on a window, but that seemed unlikely as it would not be in focus with the long focal length of the camera. Also, there's more video where it's further away. So the next obvious possibility is some balloons, perhaps with parallax from the moving plane or drone, which is creating the illusion of motion. But then after the video location was found, and a witness familiar with the situation came forward, it became clear that this was recorded from a surveillance balloon, a stationary camera, so the object was actually moving. The building configurations in the base have changed quite a bit over the last 6 years, but what matches is from 2017, which also matches what the witness said, even though the video description said 2018. We can use the matching buildings for a quick line of sight analysis. The surveillance balloon's location can be seen in Google Earth. This is the base of the balloon's tether. The balloon itself moves around a bit with the wind, but it's near this location. To calculate its altitude, I adjusted that altitude to match the roofline angle of this building. It looked right at about 750 meters, or around 2,500 feet. I put the camera at that altitude over the balloon tether in sitrec, and then added a ground track from the start to the end positions of the object, based on the video and the geolocated buildings. Then, I set up a straight line traversal, and it's a pretty good match. I have to use more recent imagery, but the remaining buildings match up. You see the speed and altitude in these graphs. We can increase the distance, and the speed increases, but the size will decrease. Or, we can decrease the distance, and the object's speed decreases, but the size needs to increase. So, fiddling around with this, we can see that something drifting a 10-mile-per-hour wind at around 1,800 feet would be about right. Now, the object does not move much, it looks very static, but that's expected for something over 1,000 feet in the air that's not rising or falling. It just moves with the air. So there's no turbulent forces acting on it that would make it move around. In the video, we briefly see a flag fluttering in the wind. Isolating it, we can see that it is blowing to the left, to the west, in the same direction the object is traveling, consistent with that object being a balloon. Some people noted that the object seems to get hotter and colder, darker and lighter in the infrared, but if you look at the background, you'll see that that changes in sync with the object, which means it's just the camera adjusting the exposure and not actually a temperature change. There are also reports that it was only visible to the thermal sensor and was not visible to the naked eye, but then it was dark and over 1,000 feet up, so that's hardly surprising. Can you even see balloons in thermal footage? Yes, you can. Latex balloons are somewhat transparent close up, but a bunch would be visible, especially with some decorations. Mylar balloons reflect the cold sky, but are also always visible. So what does this initial analysis tell us? Well, if there were some odd-shaped balloons, maybe a few balloons covered with some streamers or other decorations, and the wind at 1,800 feet was just 10 miles per hour from the east, then this is what you would see. But there's more. There's actually 2 videos. One video shows a faraway object. Jeremy Corbell suggests that this was showing the same object over water. But we can see from the heading of 172 degrees and the slant range of 6.8 kilometers that it's actually several miles due south of the base. We can also see some power lines and roads, so we can do a rough geolocation. Again, it's just moving in a straight line, in the direction of the wind at about wind speed, consistent with a balloon. But is it the same balloon? We see this second video has different colored text on screen. This suggests a different camera, or maybe just a different time. There's only one aerostat camera on the base, and this video is consistent with that location, so it could be a different balloon-like object filmed at a different time but with similar wind. So are we just looking at 2 different bunches of balloons? We can't be sure. It might be a new form of life, an ultra-terrestrial non-human intelligence jellyfish-like creature, or even an interdimensional probe. But those things are pretty extraordinary, and we don't even know if they exist. We do know that ordinary balloons are a very common source of airborne clutter. These objects move like balloons, and they're balloon-sized. So despite the odd appearance, I think that what we are looking at here is something like 2 bunches of balloons, miles apart, drifting in the wind.